The Witch in the Woods. From Black Metal Bear. Haven't posted in a while due to motivation issues, but here's one of my stories that I needed to get off my chest. So, in my late teens I had this friend, let's call him Felix. Unlike my social anxiety-ridden self, he was a social butterfly, and appeared to know everyone. As such, I ended up knowing a lot of people by proxy and hung out with some interesting folk. The one I am going to talk about below is named Carly. I'm not 100% convinced, but she might be a real-ass witch. I was at Felix's place one night with a few people and we were all playing a game of Risk. We had smoked a bit and got to talking about some weird topics, compounded by the fact that we were weird teens. You know, the usual. My buddy had crazy stories about getting stuck in a radio tower, another friend had stories about getting locked in a basement all night. I had my ghost stories, and it was one of the few times people believed me, so that was nice. Carly had the one we called bullshit on the most. Carly was your typical edgy goth girl, complete with clothes that would put a stripper to shame and enough makeup that it had a noticeable thickness. She was hot, I'd admit that, but we were distant friend and I had hung out with her a few times with Felix. She seemed nice enough, if a bit emotionally reserved. Well, this night she up and states that she's an energy vampire. I had no idea what that was, as I didn't really have access to a lot of internet in rural Newfoundland. She goes on to say that she gets energy from people's emotions, she can feel people's auras, she can detect when people have issues and she has to keep her emotions in check because she can get powerful. Me and Felix call bullshit, as we had never seen her be powerful and those kind of claim reek of fake coming from the edgy goth kid. She goes on and does a reading where she is able to tell me about my emotions. I remember she rightly said I was depressed, but that isn't much of a shocker to anyone who met teen me and told Felix he had a grave injury impending. His mom did have a stroke like a year later, for what little that might be worth. She also said some other vague things to the rest of the people we were hanging out with, which were probably correct and I cannot confirm. Finally, after this had gone on for an hour or so, I called her bluff. I asked where did she get this mystical powers. I remember asking if her dad was a warlock and her mom a pixie. She says she was taught by Mother Hilda. That was the most bullshit name I ever did hear, and I said where the hell does she live, up your ass? Becoming visibly distressed she said to me and Felix, who was laughing his ass off, that she could bring me to her next weekend. Thinking she would bring me to one of her weird goth friends who would try some edgy shit, and always down for a laugh, I of course said yes. Felix was down as well, so it was settled. Now, it's important to know that I have an issue with being a passenger in cars. I fall asleep almost immediately when not driving, a holdover from long car trips with the family. I mean I sleep immediately, if I can make it 5 minutes it's a miracle. It's really important to remember this, because I sure as shit wish it wasn't the case. So when the weekend comes Felix and Carly all get together to go meet this person. I had assumed it would be some person we would meet in the basement of their parents' house, but Carly says that Mother Hilda lives on the Bonavista Peninsula. That's a good 3-hour drive in good weather from where I lived, and I was frankly more pissed off that she didn't bring snacks. So we all got in her car. She had gotten her license already since she was 6 months older than us, and we set off. In my true fashion I fell asleep within minutes and I don't think we even hit the highway before I was out. When I had woken up we were driving on a dirt road in the middle of nowhere. For those of you who haven't been to Newfoundland, I think my wife put the Bonavista Peninsula best. It's like you're walking on the graves of a million really pissed off ghosts. Gloomy skies, gloomy landscapes and a real feeling that something is watching you from the tree line where you can't see them. I frankly hate the place. Most people I know from it are great, but everyone I know who lives on it is miserable. So I come to, and we are driving down this poor excuse for a road, And what could be more aptly named a goat path? So I immediately start complaining, where the hell are we, why are we here, what are you planning? You know, reasonable questions. To all of the questions she answered, Mother Hilda will answer like a psychopath. Felix doesn't say a word, and just looks mildly amused. So after what felt like forever, we come to some kind of clearing. It is really just a place where the trees aren't that big. In the middle sat an old school Newfoundland box house in absolutely horrible condition. Like, no one had shown this house a lick of love in 100 years, run down. It still had windows, given, but the roof looked like it was attempting to threaten the ground with its lean. I remember the place was blue and the goat path didn't reach all the way up to it, it stopped about 100 feet shy, because of course it did. Carly stops the car, gets out and like a psychopath, says again, Mother Hilda will answer. I look to Felix, who has the biggest grin on his face. He's high as a kite. I berate him, as this shit is fucking horrifying, and his only real response getting out of the car is, you're a better man than me for doing this sober. So, I get out of the car with Felix, who insists I go first. My only thought is I'm going to be murdered. Carly walks through the trees with her arms outstretched in a T pose, spinning and singing Mother Hilda knows all. Felix looks at me and says, we're getting fucking murdered, aren't we? Carly reaches the door, opens it up and motions for us to come in. Now, I saw two options. Either go in with the witchy woman or brave the untamed wilderness of rural Newfoundland in God knows where. I decide the later, as that one only has a chance that I die and no one finds the body. I reach the door and the place is pitch black inside. It was a generally overcast day outside, and the windows must have been covered in paper or something. Not freaking furnished, no lighting, just rotting boards and the smell of my impending doom. I can hear Carly laughing upstairs, because of course there's an upstairs. So I think, yep, I die here. This is a murder house for her weird rituals. I can tell Felix is thinking the same thing, but insists I go first. Thankfully the stairs were next to the front door, so I didn't have to risk walking through that creepy place. When I look up the stairs I nearly pissed myself. At the top is a girl butt-ass naked and pointing down the upstairs hallway. She has makeup like Carly, thick and dark, and is staring at us with intent, possibly murderous, eyes. I turn to look back at Felix when the girl at the top of the stairs belts out, in a voice louder than I'd peg her to have, Mother Hilda doesn't wait. So, petrified, I walk up those stairs. The place was eerily silent. I hadn't really noticed it before, but there was no sound of the wind in the trees, no birds chirping, no rustling and no floorboard creaking. I started to really get those murder vibes on strong, but Felix flashed me a hunting knife he brought along and whispered, I got you. We're leaving alive. Feeling 0.1% better, I reached the top of the stairs. The girl, who was maybe 14, ran into a room on the upper floor and I saw Carly at the end of the hall next to a door, what I assumed to be a closet. She had the biggest grin on her face, like a proud child about to show their mom a Play-Doh figure they had worked on all day. I walked closer, and with all the manly gusto I had in me, made it 5 steps in the hallway. I had the feeling I was going to puke, and every fiber in my being was telling me whatever was behind that door was danger, pure danger. Carly looked at me and said, Mother Hilda will see you, and opened that door. What was inside was what I believed to be a small child, its back turned to me and eating something in the closet. I remember seeing chicken bones at its feet, which were huge by the way. It was wearing a ratty red shawl and was ass naked below the waist. And that's when I noticed it was an old person. It had that typical saggy old person ass, the one that lacks all tone and definition. I watched this thing turn around and it was the scariest sight of my life. It was some kind of old woman, but I question that frequently, given its appearance. It had tiny, tiny arms like an infant, on a toddler's body that was holding her shawl up. It had wispy angelic strands barely holding onto its head and a noticeable hump on its back. I assume I noticed this because its face didn't make sense. It was teeth, just one big mouth with hundreds of misshapen teeth. The entire face looked like it had been scooped out and just given teeth, rows upon rows of teeth. I saw no eyes, no nose, no forehead, just long, creepy teeth. It snarled and yelled no men. And I passed the fuck out. When I woke up, I was back in Felix's house, him already up and staring at the floor with a 1,000-yard stare. I asked him if I fucking had some kind of weird dream, and without missing a beat he says Mother Hilda is real, man. I thought it was a creepy fake thing. But I saw it too. We talked for about 30 minutes about what happened and we had basically the same recollection of events, except Felix saw her move a step or two before he blacked out. I said I should go home, he said I should leave, we both went our separate ways. Over the next few days, I tried to message Carly, back in the days of MSN Messenger, but the only response I ever got was Mother Hilda never forgets. After 3 days of this, about 10 messages a day, I said fuck Carly, I didn't need that in my life. I never hung out with her again, although I did see her from time to time in school, but she refused to look at me. I had only one more encounter with Mother Hilda, whatever the hell she is, past that. I had quite a big yard before the river and had a sizable fire pit where I would have fires. Having Felix as my only real friend, I had many bonfires alone. That was fine, I enjoyed the spectacle of it all. So one night I was having a fire and I started to get really into it. Flames went maybe 15 feet high, and I was having a great time. I had whipped off my shirt, placed it on the 6 feet poking stick I had, and I began chanting in gibberish. I don't know why, but it was a conscious action. Teenagers are weird. On the other side of the fire, through a line of trees, was a small path my neighbor had to go to the woods. I caught a glance, out of the corner of my eye, of something small in the trees. Thinking it could be a wild cat, or maybe a baby bear, I stopped to look at it. From the other side of the line of trees, I see Mother Hilda, her gaping maw wide open and facing in my direction. I go to scream, as is a logical action, but Mother Hilda yells no. And my raging inferno goes out. Not even an ember stayed lit, cold dead fire. I looked back, no Mother Hilda. I decide that is enough of that, and I book it into my house as fast as my legs can go. When I get inside, my mom asks me why I'm not having the fire anymore. She rarely cared what I did, so I asked why she wanted to know. My mom said that the nice girl who wears black asked about me maybe 5 minutes ago at the front door. Mom had told her I was having a fire and she started to walk to the backyard. I go to my room, horrified, and message Carly on MSN to demand what the hell. I shouldn't have gotten an answer, since she had just been at my door, but I did. Mother Hilda likes you. I haven't really told anyone this story before now, as it is one of my more outlandish ones, but my friend Felix still won't talk about it. I met him a while ago when I traveled back to Newfoundland and asked him if he remembered Carly and the creepy house. He just looked at me with dead eyes and said Mother Hilda is real, man. Don't FCK around, and he deadass walked away. I still have yet to make sense of it, like a lot of things that happened to me. What do you think? Is this user telling the truth? Did he and his friend have some kind of fever dream? Leave a comment below.